gotta be Avalanche. It's gotta be Avalanche.
You're a beginner. Where is the opportunity?
That's the battle I think that a lot of new investors, I think, have the issue with.
Let me clap back a little bit because I don't.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Beat the Banks podcast. We are doing part 2 of the roundtable that we started last week. So if you haven't checked that out, there'll be a link in the show notes down below to check that out because this is a direct continuation of that. So welcome back to the table. Who we got? Chris, Jangle, and Zack. Welcome back, guys. You doing well today?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Yes, love it. So without further ado, I think we should just jump straight into what we were talking about and how we left it, which was the battle of the layer ones. And Jangle left us on a lovely little monologue about what he sees happening. I think all you guys agreed that we're not trying to topple ETH. We're just trying to have alternatives to ETH. So I think that could be a good part to pick up on. And ultimately, what I want to get to in this part of the show is talking about which ones of the layer ones, if you were just getting into DeFi right now and you're like, I'm not going into ETH, it's too expensive. I want to make sure that I'm laying some foundations for the next year. What one of those blockchains would you be focusing your attention on? Who wants to kick us off?
I can do that. It's going to be a little bit of a controversial pick, but I'm actually going to go back in time, and I'm going to go with Polygon. Polygon's been very quiet over the last, let's call it 6 months. A lot of people left Polygon for Phantom, for Avalanche, for Solana. But in that time, there's been a lot of really interesting projects being built on Polygon on the back end that people don't know about. There's been multiple huge hires being made, for I think someone who is at YouTube has come to Polygon. Someone who is at Google regarding game studios has come to Polygon. I think from some of the newer technologies that we've been looking at, such as NFTs and GameFi and utility, I think they're going to come to Polygon, mainly because it's pretty much as close to gasless as you can get to in terms of cheap gas. I mean, you're talking fractions of pennies. I think that's important, specifically if you're starting out, because Polygon's been around forever. So they have Aave in terms of a lending arm. So you have that familiarity with having a savings and loan type of mechanic. So that part's good. Uniswap is there, so you can look at some of the newer technologies that people are looking at in terms of concentrated liquidity, just really rock solid decentralized exchanges in the form of QuickSwap, SushiSwap, DFIN, and some of the others that have been around forever. So I like Polygon for that perspective. If you're first starting out and you're just trying to get into the blockchain, depending on where you're coming from in terms of a centralized exchange, there's a lot of great farms to learn on and understand and just build your skill set. Understanding how to navigate yield farming mechanics and DeFi on Polygon. And they're going to be having some really interesting developments on the technology front that's going to really just make everything a lot better in terms of performance, security, and decentralization. And for that reason, that's why I like Polygon for anyone first starting out. Start here, get through the new technology along with the rest of us. So that's why I choose Polygon.
Drawing a line in the sand right there. Interesting. I've just looked at DeFi Llama. It's just above Tron. Just. In terms of TVL.
Yeah. A little, almost like 4.5 billion in TVL. And for those watching who don't know, Polygon is a bit more politically aligned with Ethereum. The Polygon Foundation is working on researching ZK rollup technology, and their real mission is to scale Ethereum. Polygon is its own separate chain, but it's technically a side chain that submits its state over to Ethereum every now and then, probably a few times a day. I'm not exactly sure how often, but it's not as controversial of a pick for some people, the core Ethereum community, but it would be more controversial of a pick to others who are in their own separate communities.
Fair enough. Jangle, let's keep it rocking, dude. What would be your pick right now?
For somebody new getting started into DeFi, probably it's got to be Avalanche. It's got to be Avalanche because Polygon. You mentioned.
Oh wait, I've got it, Jangle. I've got it. It's because DeFi Kingdoms is now on AVAX. Is that why?
Well, it's technically its own chain. It's a subnet, but In my opinion, with Chris brought up GameFi, the subnets are going to be the best GameFi experience and probably onboard a lot of users. Like Zack said in the last episode, there's a lot of innovation on there. The gas fees are a little bit more expensive now that it's starting to get some congestion. So, maybe if you've got less than a four or a low four-figure portfolio, it might not make as much sense. I think Avalanche is really one of the main places to be right now.
Fair enough. And I'm pretty sure we're going to get a very similar answer from Zack. Zack, where are we going?
Cardano. Sorry, guys. Sorry. So the question is really, you're a beginner. Where is the opportunity? If this is the question, my criteria is I want to look for a blockchain where there's already a lot of things to do, and a blockchain where there's a lot of new and actually high quality projects are coming out. And if you are honest about it, you look at all these blockchains, it's gonna be Avalanche. Like, in my opinion, there is just no competition for this question of where to start. It has to be Avalanche, especially if you're looking to yield farm. You literally have everything here you need. You want to borrow against your collateral, boom, you have Aave. You want to do, blue chip farming, you got Curve, you get GLP. There's so many amazing projects where you can already earn excellent yields on these blue chip assets. On top of that, with the scaling technology, we talked about subnets. It's coming a lot of projects, and that's what I talked about in the previous episodes. There's Harmony One. The core and the best project is DFK. What do? They go over to Avalanche. Why? Because that's where the opportunity is at. And I think we will see a lot of projects where the best developers and the best projects will start to migrate over to Avalanche to launch their own subnet, to use their own token as the gas token, which means for them it's additional utility, for them it's more freedom from that perspective, and just being part of the ecosystem that's overall super supportive. And it's a very good community with a lot of smart and talented people. So for that reason, I think we're just seeing the beginning of Avalanche. At one point I sold all my ETH for AVAX, and it was a good decision because I had a significantly better ROI. Then I rotated out from ETH all-time high to like Avalanche at $30. But right now I am just holding on to my AVAX. I'm increasing my AVAX, my ETH, and my BTC bags primarily because I see Avalanche being one of the major players in the space.
But is that you looking through rose-tinted spectacles right now because you got such a big win on ETH moving across to AVAX, and now you're like, I'm all in on this? Are we missing something here? Where does Luna fit into this? As you guys know, I'm a big fan of Luna. Pretty much because I got into Astroport when it launched, and I now feel it's like one of my children. I'm just like, I must keep putting more money into this.
So you can't marry your bags. You can't do that.
I know. So what I've actually done, for everyone listening, I've taken the advice of these guys, which you should all do as well, and I've gone pretty heavy. I think I've got more on AVAX blockchain now than I do on Luna, to be completely honest.
But this is not financial advice, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Keep that in mind.
But I take the advice of these guys with a pinch of salt, do my own research, and ended up moving quite a lot across to AVAX recently. So anyway, can someone give me an argument for Luna? Because my heart is crying, it's weeping.
Yeah, I'll start, but I'm sure these other guys can jump in and have more to add. So there's a few different ways to approach a stable coin. What we've seen, the most popular and sustainable and safe way so far has been a collateralized or like a cash back stable coin like USDC, Circle, Coinbase. They've got dollars in the bank, or maybe like bonds or treasuries. They've got the dollars there. Same thing with Tether. Allegedly has the dollars there, or at least enough people believe they have the dollars there. Maybe they don't, maybe they do. Doesn't matter. That's the narrative, right?
So in Evergrande.
Yeah, and then you have the over collateralized stable coins, stuff like DAI or MIM, that sort of deal. And those are, great because they're over collateralized with decentralized assets, hopefully decentralized assets. DAI is like half USDC, but let's pretend it's collateralized with decentralized assets. That gives it a lot more security in the event of a bank run, a lot more stability to keep its peg, but it's really capital inefficient. It's hard to scale an over collateralized stablecoin to, hundreds of billions of dollars of TVL. And then you've got the algorithmic stablecoins like UST, like Chris was mentioning earlier, Frax. And, I could name Iron, if you remember the Iron Titan fiasco that was pretty famous like a year ago. There's been so many algorithmic stablecoins. And for the most part, the vast majority have exploded in adverse market conditions. But it's really the only way, if you believe in having a decentralized and capital efficient stablecoin that scales to a use case that involves hundreds of millions or billions of people, it's got to be an algorithmic stablecoin. So I think UST is doing a great job. I think that they have been paying a lot of money in order to incentivize people to come into their platform and then to spread their tendrils through all of DeFi, which some may argue might pose a systematic or systemic, I always flip-flop those words, risk to all of DeFi. And some may argue that it is enough deep integration into the entire ecosystems that it will make UST to the next level, take it to the next level. So I'll let these other guys go from there.
So for me, the question is, if you had to start somewhere, where would you start? That's the battle I think that a lot of new investors, I think, have the issue with is, I'm starting here. How do I get in? And for the majority of people, if they go on YouTube or if they even visit Beat the Banks, we talk a lot about MetaMask. We don't talk about Terra Station, which is the wallet that is used for Terra. So I think for most people, getting into Terra will be actually fairly frictionless with some of the new technology that's come out in terms of these payment on-ramping systems that are coming out. The issue is, are they going to make the experience intuitive enough at the levels of MetaMask that people will actually use and adopt on Terra? So my largest bags are pretty much at this point on Terra. For those who are brand new to the scene, is it the easiest to get into? I don't think so. Not yet. If they make that better, then yes, I think they could certainly get more people on to just use Terra, because I don't want to liken it to maybe an Apple Android situation, but there's a lot of things in Terra that are specifically catered towards Luna and UST, not necessarily towards anything else that's trying to be built there. But there's anything in terms of context that you can find on an Ethereum-based blockchain, you can also find on Terra, which is great. But I do think for most people coming in, if they end up through Binance, through Coinbase, through Crypto.com, through Kraken, you're going to end up probably in an Ethereum-based blockchain first if you're going to come into DeFi. So that's why I do think that's why I haven't mentioned Terra in terms of a place to start, because it is a little bit of a fringe outlier in terms of ease of integrating into. But that's up to them to control that narrative. I think if they can figure out a way to take control of that and make it easier to get into Terra, yeah, absolutely. There's going to be a lot of people that are seeing these digital billboards for Terra everywhere. They're going to wonder what it is and how to easily get in. And I think in the next 3 to 4 months, we're going to see some really big inroads on how to at least solve that problem partially. So what do you think, Zach?
I very often evaluate these blockchains as businesses, and I think in a way, okay, what is the business plan of this blockchain? So when I look at Terra Luna and I analyze it and I think about what are they doing here, they have one key protocol, which is Anchor. It has an unsustainable yield that's essentially that's working because there's a fund. They literally put their money to pay other people to join Terra, which means they're paying to acquire users, paying to acquire capital to come on the blockchain. Now we know that they are extending that yield on Anchor, but what they are really thinking, I think, as entrepreneurs, is their goal is let's get as much capital as humanly possible from all these other blockchains, as well as new money in Terra Luna, give them 20%, which is an excellent risk-adjusted return, right, with a stable coin. But while that money is in there, we're going to build out the entire ecosystem. Is the ecosystem there now? Not really. So I'm not invested in Luna or any of the protocols in it yet, because I am just looking to see some of those really innovative projects that will be able to acquire significant share of that Anchor vault that is in there, with probably like, I don't know, $18 billion, or how much is in there on Anchor right now? $15 billion. I'm looking to see those projects that can actually go in here and potentially be the project who would take on $3 or $4 billion off Anchor. So that's my take on Luna, and that's what I think of how they are looking to scale right now.
I let me clap back a little bit, because I don't I don't know how this is gonna, as a joke. I don't know how this is gonna end up, but Avalanche did the same thing, and Polygon did the same thing, and sort of along the ideas of spending money to acquire users and bootstrap adoption across various ecosystems, or at least grow their own ecosystem. So I think it's a bold strategy. And remember when Avalanche Rush was sort of kind of in the tail end of Avalanche Rush, the yield farming community was fairly disappointed in it. We were coming off of Polygon's incentive program, which was like a magical 3 months.
Well, for most people, call it 15 days.
Really, it might only be a month and a half, but yeah, there was a time where the rewards were really insane. Avalanche Rush Avalanche Ava Labs or whatever announced that they were going to have their Rush program, and then Avalanche went from, it was like $15 to like $35 like that or something like that. So Avalanche did the same thing, and I think that look, Terra, the Terra blockchain is the second highest in TVL by a lot, by a lot.
Wide margin.
It's more than double BSC, which is number 3 in TVL. And then they're building lots of inroads with Avalanche, and with this development with the Curve 4 pool. I mean, yes, they are currently unsustainable at the current level, but like you said earlier, Zach, think of these blockchains as a business. Amazon, very unprofitable in the beginning. I mean,
this is what I was going to say.
Customers.
Amazon's whole model was get big fast, and it was like 19 years or something of it costing cash. And now look, if you'd invested in Amazon, everyone knows the story. So is there an argument for that? Is there an argument for saying we should be heavy into Luna right now, into Terra?
Absolutely, there is an argument. It's hard to know whether it's the best risk-adjusted return, because the question is, when the bad times come, how do people act? Because right now it is not over collateralized. They're buying Bitcoin, and listen, in 3 years, 5 years, if the price of Bitcoin is 300K and the price of Luna is 4 digits, then there's no debate anymore. Luna's it's backed by hard assets, by lots of it, but right now it's still not fully backed. The backstop is not all the way there. So if there was a cataclysmic market event, everybody started freaking out, selling their UST for Tether or USDC, well, then it would be toast. But if that doesn't happen, if people in times of uncertainty are okay with running to UST because it's a stable coin and not fearing it's going to depeg, then it's reached escape velocity. So it really heavily depends on, are we going to see cataclysmic market events that prompt a bank run? And if we do, how do market actors behave? Because we see people in times of uncertainty, they run to Tether all the time. And like, does Tether have a backstop? Who knows? So.
Really good point. All right. Ready to move on from the Luna piece? Or Chris, have you got some final things to say? I feel like you're my lunatic in this.
I am the lunatic in
this
situation. And I used to be the Phantom guy. Now I'm the Terra guy. I think what Jangle said is pretty apropos. I mean, he's right. I mean, the thing about UST is that Luna's price and supply is directly tied to the supply and minting of UST. So as UST grows, so does Luna. And so I think the only real cataclysmic issue is if there is some crazy issue where sentiment dies over UST, people start selling UST like crazy, and Luna can't keep up with that pace. Could it happen? Yeah, absolutely. Will it happen? Probably not. Not with that backstop they have, that they've they did 1.5 billion in BTC. Now they're trying to diversify it with some AVAX. Anchor has more than 3 different assets in the testnet to start providing as collateral. If you go to Kujira, which is a liquidations house on Terra, there's more than, I want to say, 10 assets now that you can purchase with UST or any other currency that they provide to get liquidation and cheap assets based off of, which is amazing. A month ago, it was only 3. Now we're up to 9. So they're moving quickly. As Zack mentioned, the only real thing they don't have is diversity in terms of their projects. They do have some really cool NFT projects. They have some games that are starting to come up. As you mentioned, Astroport has really done some really good things, and I think we're going to see a lot of movement on that front within the next 60 days. And I think that we're going to see where this goes. But still super bullish on Luna, on Terra overall. Of course, we're still bullish on AVAX. I didn't say I'm not bullish on AVAX. I absolutely am. As an IT professional, I love the modularity of it. I think that's the direction it has to go in terms of scalability. So
amazing. Let's move on from this. Let's talk about what's dead right now, what's dying, and then we'll wrap up with what's next. So who wants to kick us off with blockchains that have not lived up to the hype?
Oh, there's controversy in this answer, right?
Well, Zack already gave us a hint about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I have to agree with him, as much as I love how cheap Harmony One is, and its original promise to be directly built on top of ETH 2.0, they've had some real issues with scalability. They have this sharding mechanism, and they've only still had one shard open. They have 4 that they can open, and they still haven't got. Maybe once they open those shards and they start really showing the real power of what Harmony's throughput and transaction prowess could be, then maybe we'll talk. But I think at this point they've been fairly disappointing to me. Also, even though it's not really their focus, I think any of the EVM facing blockchains of other technologies have not been great. The parachains such as Kusama and A-Star have been okay for the Polkadot area. They've been okay. They haven't performed nearly as well in terms of adoption. The yields are fine over on those chains such as Moonbeam, Moonriver, Shiden, and some of these others that are out there. They're fine. But the problem is that investors aren't flocking there. They haven't seen a lot of the same amazing technology innovations there, probably because, if it's Ethereum on most of these chains, it's very copy and paste. That's like the one thing about it is it's very portable. You literally can take code bases, fork them, clone them rather, and put them on different Ethereum compatible blockchains and just put new lipstick on the pig, as we like to call it. Just change it up and it works just fine out of the box. I don't know if I love how Optimism and Arbitrum have done either. I think that they kind of have the baggage of gas fees in terms of how ETH has those same issues. And while it's relative in terms of how much we're paying, I haven't been as big of a fan, and I don't think most people have gone over that way. I think more serious money has gone over to those chains for sure. But I think in terms of the average retail investor, it hasn't really caught on. And I've named like 10 blockchains right there. So unfortunately, you can
defend Arbitrum for a second.
Go ahead, please do.
Yeah, its ecosystem is not as robust as I had. It launched when? Probably September of 2021, November of 2021, around there. The marketing was very much around, by the time when we launched, we're whitelisting these projects. We're making sure that they're ready at launch. So when we launch, it's going to be a fully fleshed out ecosystem. That really hasn't been the case. And it was only a few weeks ago that Aave V3 launched on there, which to my knowledge is like the first blue chip money market. I think there was maybe one other money market on there, but then even Aave V3 hasn't been super taking off with high TVL as I would have expected it did. Yeah. Arbitrum's, falling behind a little bit, probably has a lot to do with the ease of deployment on there. But it will get cheaper as it's a roll up. It will get cheaper the more people use it. And then looking down, probably a year or 2 or 3 on the horizon when the ETH base layer implements sharding as well. I believe it's 62 or 64 shards that they'll be implementing on the roadmap. That is going to, by several orders of magnitude, increase the throughput of all layer 1. So yeah, but it's not here yet. And so if the theme of this segment is boohooing on the blockchains, then a common theme is going to be what's on the roadmap versus what's actually here. And so the number one blockchain that I think we can all kind of pick on for that, and Zack alluded to earlier, is ADA and Cardano, Charles chain, if you will. And that's something that is a blockchain that has a very rabid following of fans that are in my experience usually not hyper involved in actually using blockchains. I remember when Sunday Swap launched, for the longest time, there were no smart contracts enabled on the chain. Even right now, it's got a market cap of $35 almost billion. It is a top 10, even including USDT and USDC. It is a top 10 blockchain by market cap. And there is like a few $100 million in TVL on that chain. When Sunday Swap launched, I used it. I tried to use it. Terrible experience. even, now I go and I check back in on the blockchain, and there's really just not a lot there. So I don't like to discourage people or chains, and I'd much rather talk about what I like than thumbs down on what I think is bad. But I think ADA is something that definitely does not anywhere near justify the amount of attention or hype it gets.
Zach, you want to wrap this one up, or is it just
All right.
all being
Let
said?
me wrap it up. I think loser of the month or loser of the quarter, I would say I'll pick Harmony, because they had this one project that was just so unique and so good that it was really unique for the entire DeFi and crypto space, DeFi kingdoms, right? So you have one of the best projects in the entire world on your blockchain, and you fail to support this project to a point where they just leave you, right? And they say they don't leave you, but almost everybody left, right? Most people are already on Avalanche, and most people are more excited about what's coming on Avalanche than what's coming on Harmony One. So it just aligns with what I said previously of top projects going on to chase opportunities, better blockchains. So in my opinion, Harmony is going to be one of the biggest losers in this case. The technology is just, from a technical perspective, doesn't seem to be able to provide enough support for a project that is looking to scale significantly. So that's one of my losers. The second, and some people will not like it, I'm going to pick Phantom. And I have done a lot of research into the Phantom ecosystem, and I know it hurts. And to be honest, if you look at just fundamentals, just numbers, in terms of how many projects are built on it, how much total value locked, and the current evaluation of Phantom, it's not valued correctly. I think it's undervalued, but when you're very honest about what's on the Phantom chain, and you look at the project, it's nothing. Okay, there is some okay yield farms in there, like Beethoven X, some better yield farms like that, but most of them are just degen and super high risk Ponzi schemes, which means 95% of the projects on the chain are not like very good and not very sustainable projects, in my opinion. So that's, I think, one. Now, obviously, it has seen a lot of backlash, some top talent leaving, the foundation is still there. It's an interesting one to watch, but I personally cut my Phantom allocation and just allocated more towards BTC, ETH, and AVAX. And the third one, we already talked about Cardano, and I just want to touch base on what I actually think about Cardano in 2 sentences. So first of all, I used it as soon as it launched, and I aped into some Cardano NFTs. And as soon as I used this, I was just like waiting for my transaction to go through. And 2 minutes goes by, 3 minutes goes by, 10 minutes goes by, 3 hours goes by. And the 4th hour, my transaction actually happened, and I got the NFTs. And I was like, okay, I paid $1 for it. It's cheap, but I don't want to wait 4 hours to get stuff done. Like, I don't have that much time to be looking at coming back, and 4 hours is a lot of time. And I think now it's probably like 4 minutes for a transaction, cost $1, which is still extremely slow, right? So that's one of the challenges with Cardano. It's very slow still. It's cheap, very slow. It's annoying to use compared to other stuff. Like Jangle mentioned, the ecosystem, they are very late to the game. They launched smart contracts super late. The ecosystem is dead. Like, there's not much going on. Obviously, there's projects coming out. So it will be interesting to see the projects that's coming out and the quality of that, because it has a lot to catch up to, right? The evaluation, like everything they are building right now, it's priced in, which means for me as an investor, that's not where the opportunity is at. That's all I'm saying about Cardano. I want to see all of these projects win, to be honest, because I think the more people are involved, the more innovation happening, the more diversity, the better for the space. So I want to see Cardano and all of these chains win. But from my perspective, it has a very high evaluation, not justified by fundamentals. And whatever is coming right now is pretty much already priced in. So in my opinion, looking at some of the other blockchains, you will find better opportunities at the moment.
Great summary, guys. So let's just wrap this up on a positive. Jangle, we're going to wrap it on a positive. No more hatred towards ADA. Let's wrap it up on this. Of all the blockchains that are up and coming right now, what has caught your attention? What is something that you are secretly following in the bedtime hours? Who wants to hit this one?
I don't want to steal people's answer here, because I think a few of us are probably following this. But Near is a very interesting ecosystem, mainly because of what's already got a layer 2 launched on top of it that's compatible with it. It seems to be a very developer friendly environment where developers can launch smart contracts compatible with Rust and also solidity. So I'm not yet an expert on this chain, but it's very promising. And my opinion has been that for at least the last quarter, in order to launch a blockchain that really can capture TVL and catch up to where some of these other chains that we're talking about are, you can't just be marginally better. You have to really bring something at least 3x, preferably 10x to the table in order to really catch up at this point. So I think Near maybe can do that with its ease of deployment.
Good answer.
Nice.
That was not. I was thinking that was going to be my answer. I wanted to see what you're going to say first. For me, I'm actually going to go with Metis Andromeda. It's fast, like lightning fast for a ZK rollup chain. For just in terms of being ETH 2.0, if they're all going to be like Metis, but a little bit cheaper, then I am very, very bullish on the performance aspect of it. With that said, I think the key here is interoperability, because we've been seeing bridge hacks. The ease of how we're going to get money from one chain to another, or to on-ramp that money on there, is going to be critical. If they can figure out the best way to do so without sacrificing a whole lot of funds, price impact slippage, have good liquidity, I think for me that's the chain that I have my eye on the most. As Zack mentioned, loser of the quarter is going to be Phantom. I do agree with that, even though I'm still a huge Phantom fan. A lot of those people apparently went to Metis. So I'm curious to see where we go from here. We had, was it VE who took over for Solidly, and they're moving to Optimism. I think that's an interesting choice. It's a very bold choice. I think Metis is the better chain of the two personally, but I'm curious to see what happens. To me, that's the one, if you're going to be asking about bedtime hours, that's what I'm reading about on Twitter at night while I lay in bed while I try and catch some Z's. Yeah, it's about Metis right now for me personally.
Nice. Let's wrap it up, Zack.
I'm going to go with something less known, and I'm going to go with something more high risk. And this is alpha, what I'm sharing. I'm going to go with Swimmer Network launch, which is going to be Krabada's Avalanche subnet, launching in Avalanche with TUS as the gas token. We have seen DFK and its launch on Avalanche with a significantly higher market cap, doing a 4, 5, maybe a 3x. It went from $4 to $12, Jewel. Am I right on that, Jangle? So we've seen a 3x.
Yeah,
on a
$4 to like $11, $11.50. Yeah.
So a 3x. We have seen on a much higher market cap project. I think TUS will do at least a 3x on the SwimmerNet launch. And that's my pick for the next 3 months in terms of what I'm looking to put my money towards.
Amazing. What a way to wrap up the show, guys. Thank you again for putting the time aside away from the students and bringing alpha to the community for free. So thanks for doing this. Again, guys, if you have enjoyed the show, please comment down below with any questions you have for the guys, for the team, anything you would like to see in the future on the podcast. And also go ahead and hit the link, which is www.yieldfarming.com/show. And from there, you'll be able to join the Beat the Banks group, or you'll actually be able to go across and book a call with one of our advisory teams to see if you're a good fit for the mastermind, where you can spend an awful lot more time with these guys learning about the world of DeFi. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for showing up to the show. Who knows, we might do another one soon. Sounds like this is going to be a lot of fun in the future, so maybe we'll keep them rolling. But for now, guys, see you soon. Ciao.